All right, so have you ever wished you could just peek into the future? I mean, who hasn't, right?
I think it's safe to say that's a pretty universal desire.
Totally. Like, imagine knowing the winning lottery numbers. Or hey, even just knowing to avoid that super awkward conversation you just knew was coming.
That's a great example. It really highlights this human fascination with knowing what's coming next.
Exactly. And that brings us to something called Laplace's demon. It's it's a mind-blowing idea that maybe, just maybe, predicting the future isn't total science fiction.
Right. And the person who proposed it, Pierre-Simon Laplace, was no lightweight. I mean, this guy was brilliant, a mathematician, astronomer. He even predicted black holes way back when, long before Einstein.
Wow. Okay, so we're not talking about some fringe theory here.
Yeah.
This Laplace guy was the real deal.
Absolutely. He was a serious thinker. And this demon idea of his, it really gets you thinking, you know?
For sure. So how does this whole demon thing work?
Well, Laplace basically said that if you could somehow know the exact position and momentum of every single atom in the universe, right now, at this very moment,
Okay, pause right there. Every single atom. Like everywhere. That's a lot of atoms.
it is. But stay with me. He said if you knew all that and you completely understood all the laws of physics, you could theoretically calculate the entire future of the universe.
Whoa, hold on. So it's like knowing the exact starting conditions of everything and then just letting the laws of physics play out.
Precisely, like a giant cosmic pool table. You know the starting position of all the balls, you hit that brake shot, and bam, you can predict every collision, every movement from that point on.
Okay, that's pretty wild. But what does that mean for us? For our lives, our choices?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Because if Laplace was right, it means that everything, every decision you and I make, every event that unfolds, it might have already been predetermined from the very beginning of the
Wait,
universe.
seriously?
Yeah.
So there's no free will. Our entire lives are just playing out like a pre-recorded movie.
That's the concept of determinism, and it's one of the most unsettling implications of Laplace's demon.
Okay, I can definitely see why people call it a demon. Sounds kind of scary.
The name is fitting for a few reasons. I mean, first, it really does challenge the idea that we have free will. Second, if you think about it, if the future is already set, what's the point of scientific progress, or really any kind of progress?
Yeah, that's a good point. Why bother studying for that exam if your grade is already decided, right?
Hmm.
Kind of a depressing thought.
It is, but the demon also raises some really fascinating questions about, well, about reality itself. I mean, is this demon just a metaphor for the inherent order of the universe, or is it something more, something beyond our current understanding?
Hmm. Are we venturing into, like, higher power territory here?
It's a fascinating connection. Like, maybe science, in its quest to understand the universe, has accidentally stumbled onto a concept that's eerily similar to religious ideas, an all-knowing deity.
So are we saying science is describing God?
Possibly. Or maybe it's just a reflection of our human desire to find meaning and purpose in a universe that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable.
Okay, my head is officially spinning, but hold on. Haven't there been, like, attempts to debunk this whole Laplace's demon thing? I mean, it sounds pretty far-fetched.
Oh, absolutely. Over the centuries, lots of brilliant minds have challenged this whole deterministic view. And one of the most famous counterarguments is, well, it's something you've probably heard of, the butterfly effect.
Oh, yeah, right. Like, a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil could cause a tornado in Texas.
Exactly. That idea really highlights how chaotic and unpredictable complex systems can be. Even tiny, seemingly insignificant actions can have massive unforeseen consequences, potentially changing everything.
So maybe the universe isn't quite as predictable as Laplace thought.
Yeah, it's definitely not a simple equation. And then, of course, you have quantum mechanics, which throws a whole other wrench into the works.
Quantum mechanics. That sounds complicated.
Oh, it definitely can be. But to put it simply, it suggests that at the subatomic level, the universe is inherently uncertain. We can't know both the position and the momentum of a particle with perfect accuracy. It's like trying to nail down a shadow.
Okay, I think I'm getting it. So even if we had this all-powerful demon with his cosmic calculator, it still couldn't predict everything because of this quantum fuzziness.
Exactly. Quantum mechanics introduces randomness, probability, which really seems to undermine the whole deterministic view of the universe.
So Laplace's demon is starting to look a little less all-knowing and a little more like a gambler with a bad hand.
It's a compelling argument. But even with these challenges, the idea of Laplace's demon, it continues to fascinate and provoke us. It forces us to really think about the limits of knowledge, the nature of cause and effect, and what it even means to exist in a universe governed by physical laws.
That's what makes this whole deep dive so intriguing, right?
Right.
It's not about easy answers. It's about exploring the big questions, even if they make your head spin a little.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, so we've established that Laplace's demon might not be as all-powerful as it first seems, but let's say, just for fun, that it was possible to build such an entity. Would we even want to?
That is the question, isn't it? Like, would we really want to know the future? Even if we could.
I know, right? It's like, do we really want spoilers for our entire lives? I mean, part of what makes life exciting is that uncertainty, the not knowing what's going to happen next.
Exactly, the surprises, the twists and turns. But okay, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that we did decide to build this Laplace's demon. How would we even go about doing that? Think about it. We're talking about gathering information about every single atom in the entire universe.
Yeah, that sounds kind of impossible. Even for like the smartest scientists in the world, it'd be like trying to count every grain of sand on every beach.
It's a logistical nightmare, to say the least. And even if we could somehow get all that data, where would we even store it? We'd need a hard drive the size of, I don't know, a galaxy.
And don't forget about the processing power. We'd need a computer that could, like, outthink the universe itself.
Right. We'd probably have to harness the energy of a supernova just to get it started. But even if we ignore all of those practical problems, there's actually a much bigger issue: the demon itself.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, think about it. For this demon to accurately calculate the future of the universe, it would have to exist outside of the universe.
Yeah.
Because if it was part of the universe, its own existence would mess up its calculations, you know?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's like it needs to be in its own separate reality just to run the simulation of our universe.
Exactly. It's a total paradox. And it makes you wonder, if this demon is outside our universe, is it even bound by the same laws of physics? Could it somehow influence what happens in our world?
Okay, now we're getting into some serious science fiction territory here. Are we talking about a demon that could, like, send us messages or, I don't know, manipulate the stock market or something?
Maybe. Or maybe its influence is much more subtle. Maybe it's shaping things in ways we can't even perceive.
This is getting a little creepy. I'm starting to think maybe it's best if we just leave this demon in the realm of thought experiments, you know?
I'd have to agree, but even if we never actually manage to build a Laplace's demon, the concept itself is still incredibly valuable. I mean, it really makes us think about the limits of what we can know about cause and effect, and about the nature of reality itself.
That's a good point. It's like even if we can't definitively answer these big questions, just grappling with them helps us understand the universe and our place in it a little better.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someday, with all the advances we're making in science and technology, we'll be able to revisit these questions with a whole new perspective and a whole new set of tools.
Well, I'm all for pushing the boundaries of science, but I think I'll pass on building any cosmic supercomputers in alternate dimensions for now. I think I'd rather stick to more, down-to-earth stuff, like figuring out what I'm having for dinner tonight.
Sounds like a wise choice. After all, even if the future is already written, that doesn't mean we can't enjoy the simple things in life.
You got that right. And speaking of simple things, I read there's some really cool new research on the psychology of decision-making. Something about how our choices might be influenced by these unconscious biases and subtle cues in our environment.
That does sound interesting. Maybe that's something we can explore in our next deep dive.
I'm in. But for now, let's take a step back from the cosmic and focus on the everyday. Join us after the break as we get into the fascinating world of human behavior and the surprising things that influence our choices. Welcome back to the show. We've been deep diving into this crazy idea of Laplace's demon, the whole thing about the future maybe being totally predictable. We talked about the science behind it and some of the problems with it, and even like the philosophical side of things. But there's one more thing I think we should talk about, the human element.
Ah, yes, the human side of it. How do we, as people, actually wrap our heads around this idea of a future that's already set? Does it change how we live our lives?
Right, like if everything's already in motion, if it's all predetermined, what's the point of, trying to achieve things, making choices, chasing our dreams?
It's a question that's been around for centuries. I mean, if free will is just an illusion, does that take away the meaning of our actions? Do our choices even matter?
Some people might say, yeah, it does. Like, if our choices are already made for us, then our successes, our failures, our joys and sorrows, it's all just part of some cosmic script that's already been written,
Hmm.
it takes away that feeling of, like, being in control of our own stories.
I can see that perspective. But, there's another way to look at it. Instead of seeing determinism as a limitation, as something that holds us back, maybe we can see it as a kind of liberation.
Liberation, wait, how does that work?
Well, think about it this way. If the future is already set, if it's all going to happen anyway, then that means we're free from this burden of trying to control everything. We don't have to worry so much about making the right choices all the time, because in the end, the path is already laid out.
So it's kind of like saying, if it's meant to be, it'll be.
Yeah, in a way. But it's not about just being passive and letting life happen to you. It's more about recognizing that our actions, even if they're predetermined, are still a part of this grand tapestry of the universe. We can still experience joy, love, creativity, all those things, even if those experiences are part of a bigger plan.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. I can see how that perspective could be kind of freeing, you know? It takes away the pressure of feeling like every little decision has to be perfect and life-changing.
Exactly. And it lets us focus on what's happening right now, on enjoying the journey, rather than constantly stressing about the destination.
That's a good point. But, I still have one question. What about our sense of purpose? If our lives are predetermined, does that mean all our goals and dreams, our aspirations are meaningless?
Not necessarily. I mean, think about it. Those desires, those ambitions, those are still part of who we are, even if they're part of a bigger predetermined plan. And who's to say that our purpose isn't woven into that plan?
So it's not really about whether or not we reach our goals, but about the journey itself, the process of striving for something meaningful, even if the outcome is already decided.
I like that. That's a really beautiful way to put it. And maybe that's the real takeaway from this whole Laplace's demon idea. It's not about denying free will or embracing fatalism. It's about finding meaning and purpose in a universe that might be more interconnected and more predetermined than we realize.
Wow. That is definitely a lot to think about. I think we've officially reached peak mind-bending for one episode.
We have, but it's been a really fascinating journey, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We've explored the science of Laplace's demon, the philosophy behind it, and what it means for us as humans. And I think we've all come away with a deeper understanding of how complex the universe is and how many mysteries are still out there waiting to be discovered.
Well said. And who knows, maybe someday, with even more advancements in science and technology, we'll be able to come back to these questions with a whole new level of understanding.
Until then, keep those minds open and keep asking those big questions. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Laplace's demon. We'll see you next time.